quote attributed to Martin Luther says, "Here I stand, I can do no other, so help me God." Well, that's one way to approach things. How the Spirit fills us Timothy Torah, day 2 in Netzavim, first day of commentary, Netzavim meaning you are standing. And we are in Devarim, or Deuteronomy, chapter 29, and verse 10 following. It says, all of you are standing today before Yahweh your Elohim, your leaders, your tribes, your elders, your officers, and all the men of Israel, your little ones, your wives, your sojourner who is in the midst of your camp, from the one who cuts your wood to the one who draws your water, so that you should enter into covenant with Yahweh your Elohim and into his oath, which Yahweh your Elohim makes with you today. So, Martin Luther, we know that he had some good ideas, some ideals that he initially started out with, laying the seabed of the Reformation, the Protestant Reformation, away from universal Catholicism. His efforts were necessary in many ways at that time, but we also know that there was a nefarious turn in the man who became a virulent anti-Semite. But initially he took a stand, and his stand was, I'm going to make this opinion known. I'm going to stand against these errors that I see in the church as it was known at the time. And if no one else will stand with me, well, here I stand. Kind of reminds me of the song that we sang as kids in youth camp and youth revivals. And one of the phrases was, though none go with me, yet I will follow. I have decided to follow in those days. I have decided to follow Jesus. Now we would sing, now I decided to follow Yeshua. But again, though none go with me, yet I will follow. The goal in following Messiah is not to walk a lonely path. It is not to be a spiritual island dweller where we're the only one who sees it our way, especially that mindset. The goal here, which again, as I've mentioned this many times, the goal here is to build a community. Now, the rugged American individual still is idealized in our mindset. We watch the Westerns where the lone cowboy rides into town and faces down whatever the systems of injustice are in that location and rides back out of town, the hero, into the sunset. And that dramatic display has been exercised in many attempts at media entertainment, in novels and plays and so forth. And Americans tend to really grasp that because we came from a stock of people who entered into a land against insurmountable odds at so many different angles and have persevered and endured and overcome, and not just against the obvious, but if you can think about such as my own family history, men and women going into rugged mountain terrain and just digging out an existence where no one has been in their style of living. Yes, native peoples may have nomadically moved in and around the areas for a long period of time, but to build a structure, a home structure, and to clear trees to plant food in a field and dig wells and find livestock and bring it in and trying to find grazing land for the livestock. And I know my ancestors dealt with harsh winter conditions in the mountains of Virginia, etc., diseases and so forth, that there were no cures. This is to say nothing of those who endured the Dust Bowl era of time out in the Midwest, or the Great Depression, and so much has taken place historically. So to be a survivor, to be one who has overcome, to be one who has persevered, we applaud that. But if the stories be told correctly, we will not just find that it was the rugged individual, but rather it was those families who hung together. And though they may have been living miles apart, nonetheless, they would find ways to encourage each other and help each other. When first American settlers came, European settlers came to America, let me correct myself there, if it had not been for the assistance of the native people who were here already, they would have never made it. They would have never survived. They didn't know how to survive on this land. And so it takes a community. Many of us have come out of places, situations, and we have gathered in small groups. Most of the Hebrew roots communities and congregations, and at least in America, are very small. The largest among us, maybe a couple hundred, most 50, and many, if not most, much less than that. So we're not building mega auditoriums to hold thousands of people to applaud each other and say we're on the same team, but rather we cling in small groups. And then there is this part of us that single individuals are just a family, small family unit meeting on Shabbat together in a living room or around the table. And that's what you have, a couple that doggedly studies the word and clings to the covenant and refuses to yield. My hat's off, I blow the bugle, sound the shofar, and clap, stand and applaud, and I cheer you on. Because you're the heroes of this movement, of this community. But whether you are in some other foreign nation and you're isolated and you've been ostracized is the word I'm looking for, and you've been cut off, you're still connected all the way over here to the east coast of Virginia and to Florida and to the West Coast communities that I'm aware of, and those in the middle. We may not know each other, but by the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, we are connected so that we stand here together today. And it is by virtue of what is said in verse 12 that you enter into a covenant with Yahweh, your Elohim. The same covenant that I walk in is the same covenant that you walk in. And therefore, it creates, even if we are apart and unknown to each other, it creates a known singular commodity between us, a community. And that is a community of like belief. I'm thankful for the technology that enables us to make incredible connections. And I rejoice when someone lets me know I'm watching, whether it's 10-Minute Torah or Foundations for Life with Mike Clayton or the House of David live stream on Shabbat, that they say, I'm watching, and they tell me what nation that they're in. And I sit back with my mouth hung open and think, I'm just almost a nobody from nowhere that's really accomplished, but very little and a small pool, so to speak. But Yah broadens our horizons and lengthens our tent stakes. Why? Because he's building community. You are not alone. I'm not alone. We belong to each other. Whether we're leaders here as First Mission or family members or just the woodcutters and the water carriers, nonetheless, we belong to each other. And I, for one, I'm thrilled to be connected to you. And let's see what Yah will do with us through his covenant. More about this tomorrow. Until then, shalom.